Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining our webinar on streamlining food operations with Sage X3 by Bass Business Solutions. My name is Sarah, pardon me, the marketing manager at Bass. Now I would like to have our presenters introduce themselves. Let's start with Denis. Denis, welcome.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denis Boudreau, based in Dieppe, New Brunswick, and I'm the Sage X3 practice lead for Bass.
Awesome.
I'm Jeff Campbell, Director of Strategic Sales. I'm located out on the West Coast in Kelowna, BC. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Glenn Charlton. I'm the Director of Professional Services for the Sage X3 team, and I'm located in Vancouver.
Amazing. Welcome. So just to give everyone a gist of today's agenda, so now that we've gone through the introductions, Denis will speak a little bit of Sage X3, and then we're going to go through several questions just so you can learn a little bit more about today's topic, and then we will cap it off with a short demonstration and Q&A. So Denis, over to you.
Yeah, so today really is all about Sage X3 for the food. I guess we're all having, excuse me. Yeah, so today's all about the Sage X3 for the food industry. Now, whether you're a processor, a producer, a manufacturer, or a distributor, this session should be interesting for you all. We really want to focus in today's sessions around specific functionality in Sage X3 that caters to the food industry. For example, X3's got obviously built-in inventory management. We have lot functionalities with expiration dates. When we're thinking about traceability, lots and best before date, I guess it becomes quite important. Other areas that we want to focus on today is around the quality control. Quality control from this could be qualifying goods received for raw materials. This could be also around your production line, and then you can have various checkpoints along your process. So we have a built-in modules for that on the quality management within X3. From an allocation perspective, when you're into food, I mean, first in, first out is one thing, but first expired, first out is another native functions within X3. I'll be covering that a little bit in the demo. Warehouse management system. So when you're thinking about the warehouse, sure, there's a standard, location management. But if you think about seafood, maybe seafood or frozen food, you can set rules or like storage rules based upon, so if a product needs to be refrigerated, if a product needs to be into a specific environment, if there's limitations around certain bins or storing locations, that can all be set native in Sage X3. We also have, there's also built-in modules for shop floor controls. When you think about shop floors, making sure that you're capturing proper information at the proper time. If you're a processor, if you are a manufacturer, being able to allocate labors and also capture operations along the way on the production floor is critical. We also have an advanced production scheduling and optimization solution. That one is I'm going to say it's a bolt-on or it's an add-on to Sage X3, but there's some pretty extensive functionality around production planning. We have contract manufacturing, right? So that's all native to X3 as well. I spoke about traceability before as well. We'll dive right into to traceabilities and a recall scenarios a bit later on in this session. We can cater to direct-to-store delivery. If you're into distribution, we can handle that. Fleet management and the delivery optimizations, there are some third-party add-ons like integrated natively to X3 that can assist on that. And then we also have advanced and multi-carrier transport management, so TMS solutions that can help. So again, X3 can be so much more, but just to give you a little bit of perspective of the type of functionality that's built in that would be of interest for food companies. Glenn and Jeff, anything to add on this? Or
that's a good start.
You good? Excellent.
Amazing.
So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, or actually I can just leave that open and
Yeah,
then we can go through the interviews, if you will.
exactly. So the first question that I have for you, Denis, is what are some of the biggest challenges food and beverage companies face today?
Well, working with organizations, we commonly hear about like inventory management challenges. When you think about food, I mean, whether it's perishable, making sure that the right inventory is rotated, and then again earlier I spoke about the FIFO. So inventory management certainly is one top of mind. Supply chain disruptions. I mean, we've seen it during the COVID. I mean, that there's been things seems to change at a much higher velocity. So organizations need to adapt. Compliance and regulatory requirements. From a compliance standpoint, I know we speak a lot about traceability, but I mean, I look at traceability not just only from a challenge from being compliant, but also a benefit of being able to offer like higher quality products, right? Critical to understand the source of all ingredients, and then if the end quality is not to our meeting our target, then we can go back and through the tracing and lot tracking in X3, you can basically improve your process and make sure that you actually buy quality products. So and lastly, I would say distribution and logistics for many companies. It'll be interesting to see how things move forward with the recent changes on the global side. But a lot of companies procure goods from foreign countries, for instance. So being able to track and have proper channels, I guess, from the procurement standpoint, and also from a sales standpoint, right? I mean, I know being in the maritime, from a seafood perspective, a lot of seafood goes out to Asia, to the Asian market on the procurement side as well. Ingredients can come throughout globally, I guess, on the planet. So that's another topic that we commonly see as a challenge for companies.
Mhm. I mean, going between countries is one thing, but it can also be complicated even between provinces. And when regulations change, to keep up with that is absolutely necessary. For the next question, can you provide an example of a typical inventory challenge and how Sage X3 helps to address them?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that earlier, but I mean, we see from a food companies, we see them grapples with perishable foods having a limited shelf life. For instance, we're working on a project right now where shelf life is anywhere between I think like 14 days to or 10 to 20 days. So it is critical to have a clear picture of your inventory by status, right? Whether it's cleared QC or whether it's ready to be sold or shipped. It is critical to be on top of this. So to make sure that you mitigate the risk for waste. From an X3 perspective, again, having the ability to do a lot tracking and also set up defaults for like best before, use before dates. So automatically, when you either produce or when you receive an items, the system can automatically assign a best before date, so you can track, you can have a clear picture of what's about to expire. Allocation rules, I touched base on the FIFO before. That's critical from an allocation standpoint, making sure that your stock has a good rotation and you pick the first expiry first when you produce or when you ship. There's also on a project we're working on right now is being able to, some customers may require a minimum shelf life when for products that you ship to them. So that becomes critical to maintain that information in the system. Natively to Sage X3, there are standard queries that can show products that are due to expire soon. So companies perhaps may may offer a promotion if we can move the stock quicker. So that's a tool that's native to X3. Yeah, and then we just from a stock status standpoint, I mean, it kind of ties into the quality control, but X3 natively has stock statuses of an A for approve, Q for quality control, and R for rejected, and you can create substatuses. So there's ways to control what stock movements can happen based on those stock statuses. So for instance, If you're a seafood processor, you just finish processing your batch of whether it's lobster, shrimp, snow crab, doesn't matter. You're waiting for the QC results, quality control results, to come in before you're able to ship it. While there's a mean to set up the automatic status of the produced goods or reported goods on production to be a Q status, and you can limit the movements of a Q status to be, you can't create a shipment of products or goods if those products have a Q status.
It sounds like it helps to reduce the risk of any necessary recalls, which is always important as well. Before we continue onwards, Glenn or Jeff, was there anything you want to interject?
Very quickly, related to the stock statuses, of course, as we approach an expiry, X3 is also managing this, and it's very much a real-time system. So the benefit is, with all of the fully integrated solutions that are available, if you're picking stock with a handheld device, if the stock was in A status but is now expired when you actually go to do the movement, perhaps you're shipping it a day later than expected, the system will actually recognize that it is no longer available to ship because of the status change, and it's giving you those sorts of real-time controls and managing the system so you're not falling out of compliance and shipping inappropriate inventory as well.
Thank you. So how does Sage X3 help to minimize the risks associated with supply chain disruption?
Yeah, there's a few areas. For instance, you are able to set preferred and multiple suppliers at the product level. You can also set minimum lead time, economic order quantities by product by suppliers. So that's one way. Built into X3, there's the RFQ process. So should you start having issues with a supplier, you're able to generate requests for quotes from for multiple products to multiple suppliers, and then track the responses. So again, there's native tools within the software to help you deal with options, right? Manage options. In addition, there are some advanced import tracking solution that gives the advanced ability that when tracking goods as they are being imported from a variety of locations. So we spoke about procurement from a global standpoint. Native thing, you'll actually see this a bit later in this session, where you're able. We have container tracking, we have shipment tracking, so you're able to track your goods, your inbound goods along the way, and have check and balance and check and control, so you can stay on top of where is it at. So you're able to properly plan. I mean, if those are required goods for productions, or perhaps if you're a distributor, the ins and outs, so you're able to stay on top to update your customers on the status of the goods coming in.
Mm-hmm. So we've discussed a little bit about compliance and regulatory requirements. So can you expand on just how Sage X3 can assist with that?
Yeah, I spoke about lot tracking. I think lot is kind of the heart of this when you're talking about compliance and traceability. I mean, the lot, when you look at a lot of an item, it tells the history, right? Like, it's one thing to say, hey, here's my transaction, but through lot tracking, you're able to really look at a product along the full process, whether it's from a receiving standpoint, where was it consumed, where was it transferred, what transactions, what quality control testing has been done, all the way up to the delivery of the customer. So again, real time, the lot and expiration dates are definitely high on the list as far as functionality. Allergens tracking is another area. So X3 is able to maintain, to identify allergens on the ingredients. If you're a producer, if you're a manufacturer of goods, allergens becomes quite critical. So you're able to roll up. So for instance, if you have a bill of materials or a recipe with multiple ingredients, if you identify the allergens at the ingredient standpoint, there's a function to roll up the allergens to the finished products. And that's it. And I'll show you the screen for that. Nutraceutical, just to be clear, everything that we will see in the next segment in the demo is native to X3. So there's no plugin, there's no add-ons. It's basically standard out of X3 if you purchase the distribution or manufacturing modules. For nutraceutical, there is a plugin by Processions. This plugin can help when it comes to labeling requirements. When you think about all of the ingredients and what you need to print on the labels. So again, there's a full suite of functionality with that plugin. I will not demonstrate that today. I don't have that nutraceutical installed, but just know that it's available. Quality management. Again, we spoke about earlier about quality control to ensure I guess with native to X3, you have the ability to create your own technical sheets, your questions. You're able to then track results and attach those results to the transactions. So again, from a tracking perspective, instead of having records in two disparate systems, everything can be built in and native to right within X3. So as and we'll see it today, we're able to go back and with a lot numbers, track it all the way down to whatever documents were produced or captured during a quality control test. From a data integrity standpoint, right, when we're talking about compliant, I mean, ensuring that proper tracking has been done. Native to X3 are the mobile apps. So being able to capture information timely and being able to capture information using a barcode, there's the LPN's functionality, for instance, license plate numbering. So instead of having for someone to go in, look at a pallet, count the numbers, write the numbers down, go back at the end of the day, and then re-enter data in the system, being able to capture data and stock movements and consumptions along the way is critical, right? I mean, the integrity of the data is highly enhanced if you're able to leverage technology to capture those movements. So again, we'll look at an LPN transactions later in these sessions. But yeah, data integrity is certainly high on the list from a list of factors, I guess, to make sure that you're compliant.
And just as a reminder to the audience that you are more than welcome to submit questions in the questions box. So if you do have any follow-up questions, please share them. We would love to address them. But lastly, you mentioned distribution and logistics. Can you share any more on that?
Yeah, there is the native container transport tracking, shipments tracking functionality, but if you're looking for more advanced solutions on that, there's also integrated solutions to optimize like routes, right? If you have big shipments that requires multiple trucks, or even if you're looking at the rate shopping, depending on the weight, dimensions, where it's going. So there are a series or a few alternate TMS transport management solutions available that integrates natively to X3. Advanced TMS solutions can actually provide the real-time rate shoppings across the multiple delivery options, right? And then it can also help with even how you pack the goods, right? I mean, ultimately, if the weight, if freight is affected either by dimensions or by weight, so you can plug into those solutions, and it can actually help the packing. I'm going to say the packing department or the shipping department for that.
Before we close off this interview and head on to the demonstration, Glenn, any last words? You're good. All right, Denis, please take it away.
I will just shut my camera off for this segment. I'm kind of looking on the right, so I don't find it's polite not to look at people, but I'll just go off cam for this sections. But as Sarah mentioned as well, feel free to pop questions in the chat. I find that if we can make this interactive, it's always better. We will have time at the end as well for some Q&A. So I'm going to log into Sage X3. This is our sales demo environment. Just from a security standpoint, obviously, depending on who you're logging in as in this X3 system, you'll have access to various modules or various functions. My login right now gives me full access across the board. We're just from a very quickly navigation standpoint. This is, I mean, it took me literally 30 seconds to put in just a business process flow for food and manufacturing in Sage X3. The principles on this is you're able to access the different functions of the software through this workflow. And natively or standard out of the box for with Sage X3, it does come with multiple process maps and process flows, and also multiple roles. So again, all of those come in standard. Okay, so if you look at a sales executive, for instance, and look at a business process, there's some pre-built process to navigate around. But for the sake of today's presentation, we'll skip that, and we'll mainly use this interface to show you a few key features of Sage X3. So what I thought was, instead of starting from the configuration standpoint, let's start from the end. So let's say we actually get, we're unfortunate, but we actually get a call from a customer, maybe a distributor, that one of our products had an issue with. Okay, so picture this: we're gonna play with, we're gonna be looking at the jalapeno bean dips. Okay, so we're a manufacturer of jalapeno bean dips. Jalapeno bean dips have multiple recipes or sub-assemblies, if you will. So if you think about the bean dip, obviously there'll be jalapenos involved. There'll be, if you think about like spices, right? Like there may be spices that can be reused at multiple stages, and then you would then blend all of that together, and then there'd be a final process to assemble, right? To package, and then to put the jalapeno bean dips in the cases, right? So you may have different case packs. But in this case, we're going to go into the lot and serial traceability. So let's assume the scenario is customer calls, they have the goods on hand, and on the goods, the product that we're looking at, because we know what the product is. So it's the jalapeno bean dips. We sell them in 24 units of 8 ounces, like per case. And then when we inquire, we were given the lot number as well. So I can go in, I can search for lot numbers as well. And just to be clear, so this lot number was the lot of the sellable goods. Okay. So at this stage, I'm going to use, I'll do a backwards traceability. So let's just do a select here. Let's see this. Okay, so what we're looking at on the screen is, this is my sellable goods. So my jalapeno bean dips, not my sellable, but what I sold. And then this is my lot. And then what we're seeing is all the ingredients, pretty much everything that went into that bean dip. Okay, so again, just at my fingertips, I'm able to go and look at all of the source. Okay, all of the ingredients, everything that basically touched that bean dip. Right? And if you pay attention to the transaction type, we have some customer deliveries. So for instance, that bean dip with the same lots was shipped multiple times, right? So the first instinct was probably, hey, if there's something serious, I probably want to export this, and then look at contacting customers and say, heads up, there may be some, you may experience this challenge as well. Okay, so let's assume that with the bean dip, the complaint was, well, it's actually rotten, so it's there's mold on it. What's going on, right? And based on your experience, maybe we were thinking that, well, maybe when we actually we do have a quality control process when we receive the actual jalapenos, that we've seen where when moistures was too high, that it can cause issues down the road. So as I'm scrolling down here, then I would go and look, and again, those are based on my my recipes, right, on my actual work orders. So if I go down to the jalapeno here, I can see that my raw 302, which is my actual jalapenos, there's one lot. There's also multiple lots of jalapenos, right? There were some that came from lot 10,004, 10,002, right? So then I would start my investigation to look at, okay, if I look at my supplier's receipts, if I actually drill down on this, right, and if I look at the entry, I'm going to go look at the full entry here. Okay, and again, just from one single screen, right? I went into my traceability. I see all of my transactions affecting this. And now if I look at my the purchase receipts, I'm able to see what else was actually receipts on this. Okay, so that's fine. I can get the details of this. Maybe I'm saying, okay, well, I'm actually curious to look at the quality controls results on this. So what did we capture? So what was the moisture when we actually received this? So if we go back to our the raw 302, which is the jalapenos, you'll notice that we received 3,600 pounds, and then 3,600 went into quality control to QC. So as I mentioned earlier on, we're able to set rules to trigger an analysis request based on categories of products. And then automatically or automatically, when the goods are received, a technical test gets created. QC can then interject, fill in the results, and then from that results, they can then release the goods as approved. So when you look at the transactions here, received 3,600, 3,600 basically got turned into a Q status with a quality control, and then QC then released it. So let's have a look at this. When you look at the entry of the quality control, let me just go. The different transaction screens basically gives me you're able to modify and hide fields and then functionalities. So that's where you see multiple. You're able to customize the entry screens quite easily. So right now I see there's a quality control records or quality records at QC002. My analysis request was this one here. If I click on for instance, if I look at the quality history, I can actually see that there were two questions. So there's my quality sheets, my technical sheets, QC2. As the first question, which was answered yes, my question 2 was basically answered as a 4. So if I look at my technical sheets, my second question was actually for the percentage of moistures. Now again, I suspected that perhaps the moisture was high, but when I actually look at the answer, I'm within the guidelines. So I'm actually within between the 2 and 6. So percentage of 4, well, maybe that's not my issue. Okay, so I guess is the purpose of showing this is you're able to generate and capture information from a quality control perspective at multiple touch points. Could be at the receipt, it could be upon signing, maybe upon production, right? Maybe you have an operations upon production that you want to record certain quality control information. Again, you have the ability at that stage to go into the system, create your own technical sheets, and then assign it to the item, and then set that technical record to be flagged upon a certain transactions within Sage. Okay. So if I go back, let me go back here for a sec. And so right now, not my issue. I thought I could nail it down that quick from a product, but let's look at what else that we have on that product, right? So if you look at raw 302, if I go back here, I'm able to look at perhaps my stock per site. So I may be interested. Let's assume that maybe the moisture was high. I may want to look at, okay, what else? Like how many pounds of that jalapeno lot do I still have on hand? So that would give me the quantities on hand by that lot. If I drilled on that product, my raw 302, I'm able to jump to the product. And on the product, what I want to highlight here is when I click on my, let me just go here. This product is mandatory lot track. I've actually assigned a lot sequence number. I can basically leave that open, so we're able to manually put in lot number. The lot sequence number can be auto-assigned or can include a logic. So you define what logics you want to use for the lot numbers. Okay. And what you would do as well is you can define a technical sheet to for that items. Bear with me for a sec. Yeah. So right now, The reason why we saw that the QC002, well, that QC002 is specific to the item. So you may have different questions to ask based on which items. So right now, my technical sheet's QC002. If I jump on that, on the technical sheet window, now I can see, right? I can see that those two questions were the ones being asked for that specific question, for that specific item. A few other things while we're on the product is if you actually scroll up, I mentioned earlier today, if I drill down on the product category, okay? If I drill down on the product category, I mentioned a few times the allocation rules. So when you're transacting, right, or recording stop movements on the allocation rules, let me scroll down here for a sec, right here. So under the allocation rules, you can define what those rules are based on transaction type. So you may have a different transaction allocation rules based on shipments, maybe based on material consumptions. Again, shipments could be based on FIFO, maybe material consumptions is based on something else. But bottom line is by product categories, you can define your own rules. Okay. So right now, the next step could be, yeah. So we looked at the Alapino. That's one thing. So another point that I want to highlight is, let's say the Alapino bean dip is the Alapino bean dip was not of a great quality, right? So maybe the moisture was high, and you want to investigate a little bit, right? So who did you get it from? So if I go back to my receipt, right? So there's my raw 302. If I go back here and look at my entry point, I want to open up that supplier's receipt. So if I open up my supplier's receipt, there's my receipt. I got it from supplier NA56 or Cargill Corporation. I'm able to drill down to the supplier, and on the supplier itself, there's a ranking. This is not automatic. This is basically the procurement manager or purchasing agent would maintain these. But one thing that I'm noticing is, oh, that's awesome. I'm dealing with this. They have great lead time, so high notes on lead time, high notes on price. So I'm probably paying a pretty good price for this. Quantities, yeah, they never run out. They seem to always have some on hand, so they're able to fulfill. But if I look at the quality, I get a quality note of 1, right? So now I'm saying, maybe it's time that I can entertain, or maybe I should consider dealing with alternate suppliers, right? So you have this ranking that you can maintain within Right Native and X3. This is useful. Some organization may have a purchaser in place for ages, but if you think about, I called it knowledge on 2 legs. Should that procurement resource walk out or move on to a different role, if you're coming into a new job and then you have this kind of insights, I think it's great and great values, right? So to have this documented and centralized within the system. If you coming back to the product, right? So I'm going to go back. Now I see that we've got this, I see that we got this product from the Cargill. Now, if I want to go back and look at perhaps, let me just go back here, and go back to the products. So if I go to the raw 302, and if I look at let's look at stock by site, and if I look at the products, let's go back on the products. The other thing that I mentioned that you could do is let me just minimize this here. If you look at the suppliers, I'm able to put in, right, to assign multiple suppliers to this product. And each of the suppliers, I can put in, their rankings, their frequencies, their lead time, all of that good stuff. Okay, so you can have multiple suppliers. And if you're in an environment where you have multiple sites, you would add the list of suppliers or available suppliers or approved suppliers at the product level. And then what you would do is you could define at the product site level, you could define which is your default suppliers. So if you have a plant in Halifax and one in BC, chances are there's a pretty high chance that you may not deal with the same suppliers, let's say for packaging. So you're able then at the product site level to define which is your default suppliers. So you don't need to have the same default or primary at all sites. The other thing, just quickly on this, we spoke about allergens, right? So allergens, I'm looking at this at jalapenos, probably no allergens in jalapenos, but just for the sake of showing you the functionality, I went into the allergens section, which is right here. So if you click on the finder here, and again, you define your list of allergens, that's in a miscellaneous tables. So in this case, just to show you the functionality of this, I said, okay, well, jalapenos, I'm going to say there's actually eggs allergens within the jalapenos, and there's actually soy. So soy is represented by the Y code, and then the eggs is by the E code. So when you're looking at this, as I'm clicking both of them, I see the letters EY. Okay. Now, because jalapenos will go into multiple products, if you think about the jalapeno bean dip that we spoke about earlier on, so if I was to go back into my top level products, okay, and my jalapeno bean dip, so if I look at my jalapeno bean dip here and look at the entry, so if you look into the FIN 301, which is my jalapeno bean dip, now if I scroll down to my allergens, well, my allergens is EY as well. Now, I may have had multiple ingredients. Maybe I added another ingredient that was actually identified as a nut allergens. So I would see, like, let's say an N as well. You can see the last time this was rolled up. So there's a process you could actually automate, or you can run manually, that you're able to roll up the system. So based on the recipe, it'll look at all the ingredients, what recipe does it go into, and then automatically or automatically populate the allergens list on the top level product or sub-assemblies or final assemblies. Okay, so that's all native to Sage X3. The other aspect that we've talked about is, let me just backtrack here a little bit. One part that I didn't show here, the power, I guess, on this traceability screen. So right now, we've identified a lot and look at all ingredients that were within that lot, right? The finished goods. Let's assume that we did find an issue with the jalapeno, moisture was too high. Then what you could do is go on the actual line, right, of that lot, and basically do an upstream traceability. So because guess what? It's quite possible, right? It's quite possible that the item that, well, it's mostly probable that the items that you've consumed, the jalapenos, could have gone into multiple finished goods lots. So now we're looking at this to say, okay, we started with the sellable good or the sold or the shipped items. We looked at all the full list of ingredients. One of the ingredients had an issue. Now let's look at where else did that ingredient go into. So now we're looking at it from I'm going to say the early stage and forward. So that raw 302 went into all kinds of, right? It went into this INT, the actual bean dip mix, and then it eventually went into the actual the cases, right? Like when they're in the case and the lids and all of that. Okay. So again, if you think about this from a recall perspective, very quickly you're able to, and again, you could filter by transaction type, right? If I only want to see customer deliveries, maybe I still have some on hand on this. That's one thing. But if I actually have customer deliveries, I may filter this and then I can export this to Excel and then start making some phone calls. Right? So very quickly at your fingertips, you've got the full story of, I'm going to say upwards or upstreams and downstreams of your products, right? Of the full history, I guess, per lot. Okay, so quite powerful. The other areas that I mentioned earlier on is the when it gets to quality management, like having the ability to promptly or timely track accurate stock movements. So license plate numbers is native to X3. So if you look at the stock by LPN, for instance, so let's say that picture this, like if I had a handheld in my hand, I would have an LPN, like a pallet label. I go in, I scan the pallet label. Let's just pick, let's just pick a you know what, I'm just going to pick this site and I'll do a search. So what I'm doing here is these are all pallets, LPNs that exist for this site NE21. Okay, if I wanted to, if I had my scanner, I could have scanned and say, okay, I want pallet 29, and now I'll do a search, right? So there's my pallet 29. On my pallet 29, I actually have two products. I have the Con 004 and I have the Con 005. I also have, I mean, this is a non-lotted products, and I also have multiple lots of the same products. So again, I just wanted to highlight, you know, on an LPN, you can have multiple SKUs and you can also have multiple lots. Okay. Now, if you look at this, the stock status right now, it's actually in queue, so that's in quarantine. If you look at the location, so it's actually location type is storage, and then it's actually in bin or location STO 090. Okay, so just to show you how quickly it is, so think about this as if you wanted to move this pallet from storage 090 to storage 80, let's say 89, doesn't matter, to another storage. So instead of manually, you know, moving each products, you're able to go to the stock change by LPNs. And again, all of this can also be done on a mobile app, right? And now I'm going to create this stock change by LPN. So I'm going to click on new. I want to basically do a stock change with my location type. So this was in my storage, what is my location, right? My location was ST090 or ST090 maybe. There you go. And then if I look at my LPN selections on the left, at the in my location ST090, those are my multiple pallets that are actually in that bin location. So if I pick my pallet 29, now I can basically move the pallet 29 from ST090 to, let's say, pallet ST089, and I'll just create it. And again, what I'm doing here, this is web-based. I'm doing it through the standard screen. If I had a tablet, I mean, I could access this as well through a tablet, or if I had a smart device handheld, probably if you're dealing with like frozen foods, you'd want something that's, you know, IP65 at least, and can withstand the cold, do that transactions on a handheld. And then when you go back to the stock by LPNs, you're then able to search. If I look at my license plate 29, right, that was my pallet 29, and I do a search, you'll see that all the same goods and lots, I didn't touch this. Now, if you look at the location, it's gone from the ST090 to ST089. So very quickly, again, what I wanted to highlight here is the ease of use of capturing data, of capturing stock movements through the use of LPNs. And just lastly, and we're running on time here near the end, I mentioned RFQs in the process. So if you're looking at, for instance, in the case where, you know, perhaps a Cargill, you know, is just not fulfilling or providing us with quality products anymore, I may want to go and put out some feelers out there. Maybe I want to generate an RFQ for products or multiple products. I'm able to add multiple suppliers on this, and I'm able to track responses. So if in this case, there's an RFQ 11,001, there's 2 products on it. And then if I look at my, so I've generated this, I send this to these suppliers. And then if I actually drill down and look at responses, I can actually see the response that I received on price, and then you get all kinds of notes. And again, having this all within a central environment, so you don't need to have outside external systems for this.
So thank you, Denny.
I think we're on time, so yeah, I was just looking at the clock.
We do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. So the first one that came through the question box is, will the original lot trace through lot transfers into different master lots?
Yeah, so the idea, when you look at, the short answer is yes. So when we saw the lot serial traceability, let me just open this for a quick sec, right? So if you look at the backward, so let's look at backward products at FIN 301, and then we had lot, I believe it was maybe this one, and let's do display. So again, now we're looking at the top level lots, but that's just the lots of this finished product, right? Of the product that was shipped. If that lot would have been even changed along the way, we would actually see the full transaction, the full story here. Now, if you look at the ingredients have different lots, right? So if you look at for instance, if you look at the paprika or garlic powder, that's a different lot number altogether, right? Because that garlic powder has a story of its own as well, right? So when we actually look at this and say, okay, well, I actually want to do an upstream traceability on this one, right? And go forward and go display, right? Now, where else did that specific lot go into for paprika? Now now I've got a whole different branch, I guess, of that tree with this is that's what, just as an FYI. I mean, when dealing with X3 demo data, I mean, they tell us never go off script, but I did. But yeah, there's so much data in here and so many companies and sites. But yeah, so now you can tell that this raw 308, right, went into what? Well, went into these with, again, different lots. So the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Thank you. The next question, are you able to prevent materials from being moved between storage locations while the materials are in quarantine?
Absolutely, 100%. So if we look at the let's look at the lot. Well, actually, let's look at products, for instance. If you look at the products and look at that finished goods, that right now at the category level of products, I can determine when you look at the receipt flows and issue flows. So for instance, I can say, okay, in my let's say in my receipts, I'm able to do let's say a supplier's receipts, or I'm able to do let's look at the issue then. Hold on. Let's say an internal transfer, right? So an internal transfer, I can limit which status is authorized for that type of transactions, right? And I can do it by, like right now, it's all A status. So for instance, the only thing that I can authorize for Q status are work orders or miscellaneous issues. I will not allow a delivery or a service request or replenishment. I'm only allowing the approved status. So the short answer is yes, absolutely.
So that is all the questions that we have in the chat. So thank you everyone for attending today's session on streamlining food operations with Sage X3. All attendees will receive a copy of the recording in a follow-up email. If you want to schedule a personal demo, please contact your account manager, or you can email marketing@bass.com. Also, to announce, this year's Bass Connect will take place in Toronto on May 27th at the Paradise Banquet and Convention Center. We are having a second event in Vancouver on June 17th at the Anvil Center. So this is a great opportunity to learn more about Sage X3 and to see it up close and personal. We'll make sure to share a link in the follow-up email, but you can also see the link come just on the screen there. Thank you again for attending today. Thank you to Denis, Jeff, and Glenn for joining today's presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful day.